What do you do whenever you get out on the water and your pre-trip ideas, your plans aren't working out? You did everything right. You looked at the trends, you looked at the weather, you looked at the tides, you looked at everything that you thought you could have in order to catch some fish, but you get out on the water, nothing's happening. You're not getting any bites, you're not catching anything. Well, that's exactly what was happening to us on a recent trip. So we had a decision to make. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through this day from the start of the day to the end and what we decided to do and the changes that we made. So if this ever happens to you, you'll be able to use this information to help you catch some more fish. So let's get right into it. Now let's talk about the trip. We're actually going to do a wading trip, and one of the local guides was actually planning this out. We were going to a flat that they've been having success at, and when we got there, it just wasn't the same. Matter of fact, we were dealing with a lot more water than normal. This particular spot works better at a lower tide, but we had a lot of water here. So we had a decision to make. We could either grind it out in this spot, or we can make a pivot and change and go somewhere else. So we grouped up and we decided to go ahead and come up with a new game plan and go from there. Now, whenever you're running into a situation like this, one of the things that's important is if you're running into a problem in a certain type of area, like we were having too much water on a flat, then you don't want to go to another flat and have that same situation. So pivot and go to somewhere completely different. And what we decided to do was go to a pass. Now, the reason why we chose a pass is because the high water wasn't going to affect us as much. There's going to be more water flow there, and there's going to be different depths. So we can work different water columns and figure out where these fish are going to be. So when we got to that new spot, there was 3 people fishing, and this is important. Whenever you're trying to dial in that bite, you're going to a different spot, or you're going to an area you've never been to before, and you've got multiple anglers, make sure that everybody is using something a little bit different. It could be a different color, it could be a different profile, it could be a different type of lure, and that's exactly what we did. Everybody was using something just a little bit different to see what they were biting, to see if there was a preference to one over another. If we're all fishing the same and they're not dialed into that particular lure that day, then we could have a tough day. But by doing this, we're going to be able to dial that bite in a little bit better. So as the morning went on, I noticed that the lure that I was using, that was the Polk County Tweaker, really wasn't getting any bites, but the other 2 anglers were using paddle tails and they were getting bites. As soon as I switched over to that paddle tail lure, on my very first cast, I caught a fish. So now we know that the fish are dialed into paddle tails. So what we need to do now is see what the preference they have. If there is one on size, if they want a smaller one or a larger one, or maybe even color. So we all started throwing a little bit different color paddle tails. And then at that point, another pattern developed. We've noticed that the larger paddle tails were catching the larger fish, and species specific, redfish seem to like the darker colors. Now with that information, we can dial in a little bit better and start looking at our retrieves. We changed up the retrieves and we noticed the trout preferred a slower retrieve that had some pauses in it. The little gag groupers that we were catching, they liked the faster retrieve, and the redfish liked it right on the bottom too. So now we can dial this in. Now we started looking at locations. Where on this grass flat, where on the drop-offs were these fish located at? And we caught a bunch of different species of fish. We caught grouper, we caught flounder, we caught Spanish mackerel, we caught trout, we caught redfish, just a lot of different species. But all of these fish were in a specific location. Your Spanish mackerel and your flounder were right at the drop-off. Your redfish and your trout were along that flat in the grass, and so were the grouper. So if you were looking for a certain species of fish, you can cast in a certain area, use a specific retrieve, and you were able to almost pick out the type of fish that you can catch. But you're only going to figure this out if you change what you're doing. So by changing up your retrieve, changing up your lure, trying something different, you can dial that in and pay attention to what you're doing. That's how you dial in the fish and the bite in certain spots. And this is going to change throughout the day, so you're always changing up what you're doing. And just because you're having success with this today doesn't mean it's going to be the exact same thing tomorrow. It's a good starting point, but if it's not working, make sure and change up. So after we finally dialed it all in, that's when the fish of the day came. That's when our chapter president down in Sarasota, Glenn, he caught the fish of the day. That was an upper slot redfish. He caught that on the mulligan, which is our larger paddle tail in the darker colors. So again, those redfish were dialed in on the darker colors, and the larger fish were dialed in on the larger profiles, which is common this time of year. In the fall, you typically are going to catch bigger fish on bigger lures. You're going to get more bites on the smaller lures, so it really depends on what you're wanting to do that day. Now, at the end of the day, we wound up catching a ton of fish. We probably caught close to 100 fish that day, and we were able to weed through some of those smaller fish, get some larger fish, and that way we're able to take some fish home for dinner. So wound up getting 3 keeper trout, a couple of Spanish mackerel, and that was enough to feed the family. We definitely had a productive day, and if we had stayed in that original spot, probably would have caught a lot of fish, but who knows if we would have ever got any keepers out of them. So it's a good thing that we moved. So if you find yourself in this situation, you get to the water and you're just not finding what you thought you would, or you're not getting the action that you thought you would, there's two different things that you can do. The first one is going to be stay there and grind it out. You can do the same methods that we were doing, but if your gut is telling you that it's just not going to happen, go ahead and move. And when you pick a different spot, don't pick the same exact type of spot. Try something a little bit different. Try to figure out what the situation is. Is it too much water? Is it not enough water? Is it not enough water flow? Is it too much water flow? And then at that point, you can dial in and change your spot. For us, it was too much water and not enough water flow. So we went to an area that had more water flow and where the high water wasn't affecting the area, and that was a pass. Now, when you get to that new area, and this is especially easier when you're dealing with multiple anglers, make sure you're all trying something a little bit different, and you're going to find out that one person might be catching more fish than the other or getting more bites, and you can all start gravitating towards that. Maybe try different colors, but always try different retrieves, and you're going to be able to dial in that bite as long as you're paying attention and you're fishing with purpose. You're not just out there blind casting and hoping for the best. We're always out there trying to figure out what these fish want, and the way that we do that is pay attention to what we're doing and make those changes for a reason. And then once you get that retrieve and that profile and that color dialed in, then you're going to see that catch rate go way up. So if you find yourself in a situation like this, go through these steps, and I guarantee you're going to be able to pull at least more fish, if not better quality fish, than you would if you just stayed at the same area doing the same thing over and over again. So one of the definite trends that we had was the larger fish was coming on the larger lures, and that's why in the fall time we use larger lures. We did come out with a brand new redesigned fall bundle. It's at fishstrong.com. It's actually our best big fish catching lure. So if you're wanting to catch some of those trophy fish in the fall time, definitely check that out. It's the fall bundle. That's at fishstrong.com. And if you're looking for more help catching inshore fish, if you're in a rut, you really can't catch them, if you're brand new to fishing, that's what we do. We teach you how to catch inshore fish at saltstrong.com. So make sure and check us out. As always, I really do appreciate you watching. If you got any questions, let me know in the comments down below. And I hope your next trip out on the water is a great one. Bye.